Hey guys, it's been a while, but I thought I'd go through a question with you guys. So let's get started. If you've watched my videos before, you'd know that I like to start off by reading the question. So let's have a look. Question 4. Of the following, the most likely explanation for iron in the heme being able to partake in addition reactions with O2, CO, and CO2 is? I'm going to have a quick look at the answer options as well. And when I look at the answer options, I can see that there's a lot of references to electrons and bonds. That is something that I can see that is quite common. It's not so obvious with option A, but I'll come back to that and you'll see that that's also potentially referring to electrons. So that's something that's kind of popping out at the moment. But the other thing that I want to be very clear about is, again, what is the question actually asking us to do? We're trying to look for an explanation, okay, for iron in the heme being able to partake in the addition reactions. Now, apart from the word explanation, what other word or word could I narrow down in that sentence, that I believe is the most crucial? Okay, that's the most important part of this question. And I would probably say it's got something to do with addition reactions. Okay, I would say, yeah, we're trying to find out something about addition reactions and about iron participating in an addition reaction with O2, CO, and CO2. And we are trying to explain, okay? So explain how it's able to participate in this particular type of reaction. So there are a lot of words. I talk a lot about keywords when I do my videos, as you probably know. There are a lot of keywords that we can kind of follow. For example, we could follow iron, we could follow heme, addition reactions. We could look for O2, CO, CO2. We might even look for the words electrons or even bonds or covalent bonds, okay? So let's just stick with just looking for addition reactions first. Now, the paragraph above, it doesn't have a lot of text, but even so, in another type of question where there might be a page full of text, you would still go through the same process, okay? You're essentially just looking for those words. And I can see that there's reference to addition reaction right in the middle there. And I'm going to have a bit of a read, okay, and see if it's enough for me to answer this question. Okay, so if I go back to the beginning of that sentence, it says that oxygen is bound onto the iron by an addition reaction in the lungs, where the partial pressure of O2 is high and is later released elsewhere where this pressure is lower. Now, what we can gather from this sentence is that iron participates in an addition reaction with oxygen. Apart from that, we don't really gain much more. Of course, it talks a bit about partial pressure and the fact that it is later released, etc. It doesn't really seem to explain what's going on. And I had a brief look at the options and I don't see anything talking about partial pressure, for example. Okay, I can see there's a lot of references to electrons. So right now, I haven't gotten any more information. Okay, all it's really telling me is what I already know. Iron participates in an addition reaction with oxygen. So if we keep on going, what do we read? So I'm going to keep reading. Other substances such as CO and CO2 that can also donate 2 electrons can attach to the hemoglobin. So what is this telling us? Now, it's telling us that CO2 and CO donate 2 electrons. And that's how they attach to the hemoglobin. That could be referring to the heme molecule. I'm just kind of thinking about that as well. But what's really, really important to note is that the fact that it says also. Okay, you can take a moment to kind of think about this if you're watching this video. Okay, why is this important? Well, in the previous sentence, it was talking about oxygen and what oxygen was doing with iron. Okay, so think about it like this. It's saying that O2 and iron participate, okay, they partake in addition reactions. Okay, That was the first sentence. Then the second sentence is giving us another premise, which is that CO and CO2 donate 2 electrons. They donate 2 electrons. What could they be donating the 2 electrons to? Well, it's saying that they are talking about attaching to the hemoglobin. You might know that the hemoglobin has heme, etc. But the fact that this sentence follows the previous sentence is likely that this is talking about it donating 2 electrons to iron. Okay. The fact that it says also means that oxygen also does that. Okay, oxygen also donates 2 electrons to iron. Okay, this is what it's suggesting. Okay, so this is implied. Okay, that O2 donates 2 electrons to iron. Now, this is important, especially if we have scoped out the answer options already. And we can see that there's a lot of references to electrons. So I'm thinking, oh, we're on the right track here. We've found out something about electrons, what's going on with the electrons. So O2 is donating 2 electrons to iron. Now, what this is saying is that iron is accepting 2 electrons. Okay, this is incredibly important. Let's have a look at the answer options. So answer option A, the ease of iron to change from Fe2 plus to Fe3 plus. It's not an easy option for us to link to what we've just found out. I will come back to this option, but what we can do right now is to skip it. Okay, I don't see an obvious link between this and what we just found out, that iron is accepting 2 electrons. B, the ability of iron, Fe, to accept electrons and form coordinate covalent bonds. Now, the first part is great, the ability of iron to accept electrons. That's enough for me to kind of go, all right, that looks pretty good. Okay, I'm not going to worry too much about the whole coordinate covalent bonds for now. Now, if we look at C, just to see if we can eliminate options, okay? C, the propensity of iron to share its 4s electrons in coordinate covalent bonds. The word share is the thing that I don't like about this option. So we already know that iron should be accepting, it should be taking 2 electrons. We're not talking about sharing. And if you have a bit of assumed knowledge in terms of general chemistry, you would understand that there's a difference between electrons being shared and being donated or accepted. Okay, and sharing is more to do with covalent bonds. Anyway, that's enough for me to get rid of option C, because we know that there isn't sharing going on. And then D, the acceptance of iron of 2 electrons from nitrogen to form covalent bonds. So there are 2 options that are referring to the fact that iron is accepting electrons, 2 electrons, which we've kind of figured out here. Now, the key thing is that from the text, we've figured out that iron accepts electrons from oxygen, CO and CO2, not necessarily from nitrogen. So that's one thing to be a little bit wary of. And another thing to be wary of is the fact that if we are accepting or gaining, or even donating or giving away, that's more in the realm of non-covalent bonds. Okay, so if this is talking about forming a covalent bond with nitrogen, that would be sharing electrons, which is kind of what option C was talking about. Okay, so the fact that we're talking about acceptance of the electrons and also referring to covalent bonds in the same sentence doesn't really make sense. So option D kind of looks right, but the references to nitrogen and also to covalent bonds means that it's not correct. Okay, so B is looking pretty good. Now, what else do we need to know? Well, interestingly, option A is also talking about electrons. So if it's going from Fe2 plus, and I'm going to just get rid of a bit of room here. If we're going from Fe2 plus to Fe3 plus, well, it's becoming more positive. Okay, so the ion is becoming more, the ion is becoming more positive. And that means it has lost an electron. Okay, so in fact, going through this process, it has become more positive, which means it has lost a negative charge. Okay, it has lost electrons. So option A doesn't even make sense as well in terms of whether it's accepting or accepting or donating electrons. Okay, so we can get rid of option A. And we can be pretty confident with our answer, okay, for B. Alrighty, well, hopefully that makes sense. Now, a few other things that are worth kind of noting here. If you were to look at this question from the get-go, it may look like it's a biology or a biochemistry question, when in actual fact, when we go deeper, the science that probably would have helped us would be general chemistry, which is just understanding how bonding works. Again, understanding a little bit about covalent bonds, for example. And even then, you don't really need to know that. You can gather what you need from the text, essentially. So it's really important, and I think a lot of students still struggle with this. It's really important that when you're looking at a question, you shouldn't be categorizing the question based on the superficial science topic that it appears to be based on. Okay, it's talking about hemoglobin, and you might think biology or biochem. The best way to categorize questions is to look at how the question is written. So this question has been written, as I mentioned at the beginning, I think I mentioned at the beginning of the video, that this is like a complete the sentence type question, right? It says, of the following, blah, 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 is, and you've got certain answers which are quite wordy. And often what you need to do with these type of questions is to go up to the text or potentially figures and whatnot, and to look for evidence and try to either deduce or infer an answer or to string bits of logic together, that sort of thing. So that's the kind of question this is. It's not a biology question. I hope you found that useful. Please click like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.